Hello, boys and girls, and especially you, these two little ones here. We have finally made a couple of signings, and it took a while for that Jesus one. So we're gonna talk about it. We're gonna get into it. Let's see how we do. How are you two doing, first of all?
Good, bro. Not too bad. I'm excited for this one. I think it was a signing for me that I was very very happy to get. I think you're kind of looking at a situation where there's a player right now that's everyone's kind of known well, but maybe hasn't exploded or realized his potential that really he could do. There's a lot of untapped potential with Jesus. I think there's a lot of misconceptions that I'm really happy to maybe we can clear up in terms of his movement, in terms of what kind of player that we're getting. But in terms of how exciting you have to be for a signing where it's that prime age kind of player coming in who's experienced trophies, who's experienced winning, and can really also grow himself. Like, I don't think we've seen the end of Gabriel Jesus. I very much think that we've seen a player that had to regress to both a bit part role and mentality, but also role. And I think that carries something very different. So if you've watched his Palmeiras days, I think you're going to get a very different impression about what kind of player we have. Somebody very creative. And in fact, I think his announcement video where he talked about having a chance to express himself was something pointed. Like, I don't think that was something to gloss over. I really feel as though he hasn't had an opportunity to really show who he is in a professional sense quite yet. So very excited. And a really fun fact to kick off the video that people may not know, Gabriel Jesus is a player who scored the most Premier League goals inside the box, as long as stats have been going on. So that is something very exciting. And, one thing you can take out of this video is that Gabriel Jesus has probably one of the best movements in the box in the Premier League. He's phenomenal in the box movement wise. And we just took a massive step forward off the ball as a team with him.
Sige?
Yeah, what do I think? I think it's a decent week. It taking so long kind of like decreased the hype around the signing, despite it being a big one. Obviously, the reaction's been good. He was in training today. The club just generally always take long to announce players, anyways. Even if like we saw that picture of him and Edu in the training ground on what, Tuesday or something, maybe Monday. So it's been like a week or something since everyone's known like he's essentially an Arsenal player. But like I think it's a great signing, obviously taking him from Manchester City. There's not many there's not probably a better team you could sign a player from. Um Obviously it allows him to get a bigger role. It allows us to get a player who, let's face it, there's only probably Mane is probably the only player who's been on the market that can play all three positions as good as Jesus, if not better. And there's not a better versatile forward you could really sign to play striker, left wing and right wing. Obviously, there's been big talk about him saying, "I'm a nine, I'm a striker." He kept saying it, and if you watch his interview, he kept reiterating, "I'm a nine, I'm a striker. I can play four, maybe five positions, but he's a nine and he wants to score goals." So hopefully he does score goals for us wherever he is, left wing, right wing, striker. But I do think it'll be a good signing and it's probably one of the best of the window so far.
Right. So the main thing I wanted to talk about was the versatility issue and where do we think he'll play before we get into what he brings to this team, because there's a big debate about going online. I think we are all pretty on the channel. I think we're pretty solid with where we think he'll play. We think he'll play up front, but we'll also have a role as a backup wing option for both sides. Um, Me personally, I think that there's still room in the squad for another frontline signing, and because the winger market is, sorry, not the striker, the winger market is so dry right now. It might be a case where we have to pivot and look towards another striker. We've already been linked to some earlier. I mean, what do you guys think? Where do you think he'll play, and what do you think this means for the rest of the window?
Well, I think it's really important to understand what kind of player you've got in Gabriel Jesus. He's a player outside the box that thrives in wing spaces. He's a player that really likes to receive wide and cut in, whether it's on the right wing, on the left wing. When he's played striker, he hasn't necessarily outside the box taken up a central presence. And what he does is he's very good at analyzing where the faults are in between the line, and he will find that space and attack it. but he does so kind of in a way where he likes to run with the ball, and the way he plays different roles is very, very different. So at right wing, what you find is a player who really likes to run in behind and who may come inside and attack kind of defenses a little bit more off the ball and a la like Theo Walcott kind of mold. But when he's on the left wing, he's a lot more involved in play. He's able to open up and dribble a lot more and combine with his midfielder. And he does a lot more work with the ball when he's on the left side of the pitch. But in terms of being a central presence, even when he plays as a nine, and I think one of the best examples is when you analyze his performance against Real Madrid, that first half, he really was that nominal left forward. And, he was really a strong pressing trigger. We'll get into like his qualities, that probably being one of his best qualities. But when he was playing off the left, he was much more responsible being an outlet, really prime, involving himself in play. But then when he got shifted kind of to that striker role, he never really stayed in the center. He really drifted out wide right, and he would be an option to receive and lay off. But what you notice with Gabriel Jesus on the right is he doesn't attack the byline as much. He actually holds the ball and recycles a lot more on the right side of the pitch as versus kind of the left side of the pitch, where he's a lot more attacking, a lot more direct, and he's more willing to take you in or out both sides. And I think that's just naturally because he's got a great, I think, feet both ways, but really he's stronger on the dribble on the right foot, and so he'll drive that way kind of naturally. I don't know if he's got the best ball striking. When he focuses on his technique, it's pretty solid, but that technique doesn't come out often enough, and you're not going to get somebody that's going to lash goals from outside the box. There's a reason he's somebody that's got the most goals out of any player inside the box in the Premier League, and that's because his movement is phenomenal. I think what he does really well is off the ball, he gives us a different dynamic, both pressing wise. He's probably the best presser in the world, among at least the best pressers in the world, and certainly for his age bracket, he is in that outlier effect. If you kind of analyze players about who likes to run and who provides kind of repeated sprints, Gabriel Jesus is somebody that does that more than really anybody in his age group. But beyond just the pressing and the willingness to work for the team, and he is very clean technically. He's got a phenomenal first touch. That's probably one of his next best qualities. Especially pulling the ball out of the air. And you can kind of see that Ramsdale long ball that Martinelli had open quite a lot and being received by Gabriel Jesus. And that really he's very good at cutting inside, but receiving wide. And so for me, maximizing this type of player, you either flank him with two people that can receive between the lines really quite well and reliably to let him have free reign within the box, or you give him a striker that likes to play wide or receive wide and then allows him to cut in. So those are kind of the two ways that you can get with the Gabriel Jesus, because like I said, you're going to see right now he does his best work wide outside the box, but in the final third, he does his best movement inside the box. And so he's a very unique type of player. I think he's good aerially for his size. I don't think I would call it a strength necessarily. I call it competent. He's very competent, but really the reason he gets a lot of those headed goals is his movement. It really is phenomenal. He goes blindside so many times on his marker, and he really knows how to find that space to really kill you, and he will attack it. So you won't have the Brighton effect. If people remember back in our run-in, Arsenal Brighton, and we were lamenting the Lacazette not running into the space. Gabriel Jesus will make that run. He will constantly create, space for his teammates, and that's something I'm really excited for, the off-the-ball presence. And I think this is going to be huge in away days. That for me has been the biggest reason why we were so static last year, and why I think a lot of people were frustrated was we didn't have a striker that would move. And having a moving striker, we said constantly in this channel, would really improve things. And I think Gabriel Jesus does that. It's just, I don't think he will do it to the same degree that people believe down the center outside the box. I think that's a very different type of player. But I'm really excited because I see 2 to 3 positions essentially secured with his type of signing. And he's going to take our goal and attacking the box to another level, because he's somebody that's very, very aggressive in making sure that he will get to the byline as quick as he can. And he is technically sound. I don't think he's great back to goal. One thing that he will do is, he'll lay off quite quick in the kind of that 1-2 touch kind of lane. And then he'll spin and he'll attack the space beyond, which is something definitely that we need. So I'm very excited, and maybe excited to kind of see how he works with Eddie and Kedia and with other people in our team, because I see somebody that probably has the best movement in the squad right now off the ball.
Yeah,
So, what do you
so
make of his? What do you think he'll bring to the team in terms of? Because I know a lot of people are talking about goals specifically. Is he going to be someone that will have a goal explosion? Is he going to be someone that's going to give you goals by just being in the box, or is he someone who's going to be a bit more off the ball and create space for other players to thrive in? How do you see him going and participating in this in build up as well as in the box? How do you think he's going to perform?
well, I think he will add goals, like goals and assists, especially. Um, he's had very good numbers for Man City, despite not always starting. I don't think he's even. I'm not sure he started 100 Premier League games. So at Man City, he's played a bit part of the run. He's got 58 goals and 29 assists in 159 games. So to play so many games off the bench, he's a very efficient player. And obviously, we saw the graphics that were comparing him to like Henry, Aguero, Salah, Suarez,
Van
Van
Persie was on
Persie.
there.
Yeah, Van Persie. And he had like a better goals to minute ratio than Suarez. Suarez is probably the only comparison which is semi fair, just because they've played like the same amount of minutes in the Premier League. But everyone else has played like 10,000 more minutes. So it's obviously bloated and stuff. But those things are nice to see. Like he's got a very good goal and assist per game ratio. He's essentially averaging a goal and assist every game. And for some to add someone like that, 25, I think what is it, a 5 year contract. Again, able to play left wing, right wing striker. He's ascending to his peak. He definitely hasn't hit his peak, and he's never been the main man in his career. Obviously, he's been at City since he was 18, so he's never been the main man in his career, and it will probably be the first time for him to be the main man and show what he can do as the main man. Obviously, he scored headed goals, and in a lot of the comps you see of him, you'll see a couple headers. He scored 10 headed goals or something. And that is definitely due to his movement. And obviously, he has played with the arguably the best crosser in world football in Kevin De Bruyne, which really helps to get the headers. But like, I think he adds a different dynamic. He's one of the best 1v1 dribblers we have at the club. Has one of the best movement. Obviously, probably the most versatile forward, barring Saka, who's probably the most versatile player in Europe. But apart from that, I just think he adds a lot of different elements. Do I think he will get 20 league goals? No. Do I think he'll get 20 goals and assists combined? Yes, I do think he'll get that in the league. And then obviously in Europe and other competitions. But I just think he doesn't add a clinical edge necessarily, because he's never been a clinical striker despite scoring so many goals. He's never been that clinical striker. If you have one shot in the 95th minute, who do you want to take it? I don't think a lot of people would have said Jesus, but he just adds different things on and off the ball that will allow us to score more goals. So yeah, I do think he will add goals, but not in the way people might think, like Aubameyang. When Aubameyang came, everyone's like, this is guaranteed 22 league goals. And I don't think he's that.
That's pretty much spot on in terms of the what he brings to the team. But the other thing I'm going to talk about is this question here, because in terms of him adapting to different measures, look, what we always wanted in this team was a central presence that moved into the box, someone that would be moving around in the box, find space, create space for others as well by moving defenders and etc. When you have someone like Kieran who's able to whip balls in, it creates panic, and when you have panic, you have the ability to really uh, basically pounce and create goals out of situations. We have seen Kieran have that whip ball for time and time again, but I think we're moving towards a more structured build up from both. So where you're having, I don't know if you've seen there was a athletic visual where they had where teams created from in the Premier League, and we moved a lot more centrally. It was a lot more balanced throughout the team, as from the season before, where it was like 40% from the left and 15% from the right. It was more 33, 34% all over the pitch. I think when you have someone like Kieran who has an ability to put the ball in the box, hit the byline and get the ball in, it only is going to be offering something that's actually going to improve the team because you have extra bodies in the box crashing in and finding space. So I think he'll do fine with Kieran. I think there's a lot of different players that need to adapt to each other here. So for me, I think he'll be fine with Kieran. I think it's to be a good thing.
I don't even think there's anything to adapt to. Sorry, Karen. Like just really quickly. In fact, he's going to complement Kieran quite a bit. A lot of times, and it's not just Kieran that we've done this. How many times have you seen Bukayo Saka, or how many people have you seen waste cutbacks? And I don't mean to get on to people, but Lacazette, Odegaard, even Saka at some points last season haven't made the best use of cutbacks. It's really our primary use of chance creation in the final third. It's what really we use to attack teams with. And Gabriel Jesus is one of the best movers in the penalty box. So if you're getting reliable crosses kind of on the floor to him as in the form of cutbacks, you're going to be scoring or asking at least the goalkeeper a lot of questions. And so for me, I think Gabriel Jesus is amongst the best movers in the Premier League in the box, and we're going to see that. So I think not just Kieran will benefit, I think Bukayo will benefit. I think even Odegaard, and anybody that is willing to go byline and cut back inside, these are players that are going to benefit from Gabriel Jesus' movement. And I think that while we may not see a 20 goal a season striker, I'm expecting anywhere from 15 to 20 in the league. That's something that I think that he can do. I think his movement, though, will help free other people from having to remain touchline. We've recruited a real proper outlet that can, on his own, control those wide spaces really well.
The other thing is we haven't mentioned yet is his pressing, and he's such a good pressing forward as well. He's one of the best in the world at it. We're getting someone that will be aggressive, and we saw against, for example, Eddie against Leeds, where you just create goals out of situations where you wouldn't expect to. So I really feel like that's something that we need to take appreciation of and really accept that look, we've got someone on our hands that we need to really push in terms of the pressing issue, because we want to be a bit more front-footed with our approach in terms of going forward and defending as well on the front foot. I mean, I'm seeing a quote earlier today saying the Arteta approach is having defenders who can attack and attackers who can defend, and that I think that's so apt and so appreciative. They're looking for footballers that really that can contribute in both ways, both attacking and defensively as well as in transition. So I think that's another essential thing to point out.
Well, I think when you look at it, Kern, like you look at the amount of players that we've got in the press, and so we employ a very good press, but I think part of the issue is we haven't been able to really use it from stamina and from the team being able to support it too often. And so now what you've got is you've got Eddie Nketiah, you've got Gabriel Jesus, Martin Odegaard, who's a willing presser, Bukayo Saka, who's a willing presser, and you start to see that there's 4 or 5 options that love to press. Martinelli, another one who will fervently press, and so you start to basically have a rotation of a front line that will constantly be willing to sustain this press for 90 minutes instead of a 20-minute period. I found we didn't have the fitness or the ability as a squad to employ a press really for 90 minutes. Really, we did it in spurts, and we had to do it, especially against the big teams, in kind of 20-minute block periods. Gabriel Jesus will give you an opportunity to have somebody that will constantly attack the box and attack their man in the last offenses, and he'll give us kind of a versatility to do that. Left, right, down the middle, doesn't really matter.
Yeah. This is the thing I wanted to move on to, because before we do move into the Turner situation and his deal and his signing, I wanted to address what we think is going to happen in this window just for a couple of minutes, because I personally, and I know I'm in the minority on the whole social media side, I personally see us going for another striker. I don't see another winger happening. I know George and CK both have the same views, but for me, I feel like the winger market is so dead. It's so dead. We're looking outside of Harvey Barnes. I don't really see a lot of players that I feel like are going to move me in terms of competition for the squad, because if we're looking for backups, you need backups that can compete for the first squad, that you can come in and not have a massive drop off. So I don't really see. I mean, if we're looking for another winger, I personally think that Reece is fine. I think Reece is fine there. I think Reece has come back and he seems to have had a lot of minutes under his belt.
Well, I
So
wouldn't, Curran. The only thing that I'll just push. I've said this quite often is, look, Gabby Jesus definitely talked about being a 9, but I think Gabby Jesus does his best work in wide spaces, and I don't discount the opportunity of us looking at another striker or central presence to kind of pair with Gabby Jesus. And in terms of being winger or striker, ultimately he's somebody that gives you that kind of width on the pitch. And I think we need to combine it with a central presence that's a little bit more dominant aerially. So I wouldn't rule out that type of striker. Your favorites in that mold, take your pick. But in terms of if he is a winger and how we do have to support him, it's somebody that's got very consistent ball striking that can go in and out both sides. And I think would for me at least, primarily be used off of the left, because right now we've got a player in Gabby Jesus that's a phenomenal right wing. And he did basically all of last season for Manchester City. If you look at his heat map and kind of where he was, he was nominally a right wing and how they used him. And so if you're looking at backup for Bukayo Saka, I think that's really what you would be looking towards. But I've always said I felt that Gabriel Jesus is more somebody that does his best work wide right now. So I wouldn't rule out a striker, not necessarily a winger. But maybe to round off the vid, we got to talk about Turner. So for like the last 5 minutes, somebody that I do know well, I've seen quite a bit,
yeah,
but somebody that's going to be a different profile to what people expect. So he isn't somebody that is great, necessarily at his with the ball at his feet.
Yeah.
There's going to be a distribution gap between Turner and Ramsdale, but what we are getting is a very complementary profile, somebody that's probably the complete opposite of what Bert Leno is in terms of his weaknesses. I think he is that type of keeper, a really good shot stopper, but somebody that carries a lot of strengths that Bert didn't do. So, he claims his area very well. He's a very good communicator, organizing his back line. He's not massive, but he's a real presence in the box. So he really claims crosses quite early. And his major superpower is he is an unreal penalty spot, stopper. This is somebody that is got phenomenal intuition about where people are going to go. And despite kind of that distribution gap, I think Turner's very brave off his line, very authoritative. So he's not like Burnt, where he will actually claim crosses quite early and effectively. He doesn't mind competing in contact, doesn't mind being hit. And of course, he is really chatty as a goalkeeper. Like, he does talk quite a bit, to his back line. You notice that really, really easy. So he's very proactive, letting defenders know what's behind them and, what's in front of them. Also, you're going to get somebody who's really focused on improving their game and mentally is a really good dressing room influence, which I know is not something that people want to hear, but like, when you have a goalkeeper, those soft factors are really, really important for them. And so he's super strong in terms of adapting to like really poor circumstance. But the big thing that he will need to work on is, again, the distribution. He's got a very early release, kind of like Emi Martinez, but he doesn't strike clean through the ball. So on his long clip balls, he's going to have to work on those, because he has a tendency to kind of chip them, and they do get kind of lofted in the air. So he has to work on striking clean through the ball. But again, I think we've got probably one of the best penalty spot stoppers in the world. And I mean that very seriously. He's phenomenal from the spot. And he's very mobile, quick from static positions, and very intuitive to where people's go. But we will have to work on his distribution. But all in all, for peanuts, I thought it was a very, very good Bert Leno backup. Of course, everybody knows I've preferred a Sam Johnson kind of solution, but
He went to Palace.
But he went to Palace, and
Yeah.
we obviously weren't looking at him. But this is a guy that in that other mold of goalkeeper is top.
Yeah, very much so. And he's someone that is very vocal of his line as well. I think a major thing we saw with Ramsdale last season was his cajoling and the atmosphere that he brought to that back line, and constantly getting guys to focus, the set piece organization, his ability to just make sure that everyone in that back line understood what their role was, and kind of pulling and shouting at people. And I think Turner has that as well. what Turner is our cup goalkeeper. I think he's the penalty goalkeeper. We're not going to have a sorry Kepa situation here. We're going to have a proper situation with a goalkeeper that knows how to stop penalties and is a shot stopper of the highest caliber. So, yeah, I mean, CK, before we do go, do you have any final words about Matt Turner?
Yeah, I think he's probably better than Ramsdale 1v1 or more competent coming off his line. I just think he's more composed 1v1, hence the penalty shot stopping. Ramsdale, obviously at the end of the season was a bit after the Liverpool game at home, where we lost 2-0. He just didn't look the same. He was letting shots in at his near post. He was quite poor from the Liverpool game, so he was probably carrying an injury. But yeah, I think Turner's a very composed keeper. Not the best with his feet, but he's fast with his feet. He's quick at making decisions, which is different to Leno because Leno was poor with his feet, but always dilly-dallied. He never made his decision straight away. He always took time to make his decision. And when you have that added with not being good, it's very negative. And obviously, that's what happened. And then the Benfica goals happened. Oh, no, so it wasn't Benfica. Was it Benfica? I forget who. Olympiacos it probably was, I think. But whoever the team was, there was many issues when Leno would pass it out the back to another player. It happened versus
No, it was
Watford in the
Olympiacos. Yeah, Olympiacos.
Watford all these games. So yeah, it's happy that we know Leno's going. It's good that we know Leno's going. We know who the backup is. He's coming early as well. Yeah, I think it's a good signing, and it's cheap. Another cheap signing like Marquinhos.
Right, people. I know a lot of people, including the Mr. CK himself, wants to watch Love Island, so we're gonna end it there. The last thing I'm gonna say is, before we go, this whole situation with whatever's going on with Twitter, stop commenting on things that you know nothing about. We don't know anything about it. When it comes out, we'll discuss it and we'll have a conversation. But until then, let's just wait and see what happens because these are serious real life issues. And it's just everyone take a breath, step back and realize that there's things more important than getting a bang on Twitter. So that's just the last thing I want to say. My name's Karan. You can find me at Karan BAP. You can find this one here at George V_AFC. At the bottom, you can find him at CK Football. Follow the Twitter at BAP Footy. Follow the Instagram at Ball of a Passion. And we will see you soon. I think we're going to be doing a Twitter space, not Twitter, a BAP space about the transfers. And then we've got an Academy pod coming out. And I think CK's got some member content, I think, coming out soon. So there's a lot coming up. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you can. My name's Karan, and we are out of here. I will see you soon. Bye-bye now.